There's a bit of controversy, I guess, on Twitter, but I don't pay too much attention to it. People are upset over the opinions of some of the people who work here at Timcast.com. We've got a lot of people who are very pro-Israel and a handful of people, it's a handful on both sides, who are either very pro or very opposed to Israel's latest military action. Actually, I don't know if anyone here is just like adamantly in favor of everything Israel's doing. I think for the most part, it's kind of, I don't know, it's a heated debate. And it's allowed. The opinions are allowed. I'll probably do a segment on it later today about the deep concern that people are expressing over the opinions of our staff. But there's a reason why I opened this segment by mentioning this. Because I think it is fair to be concerned about what is happening in Israel and to be critical of Israel. Not because Israel is deserving of any violence, or in my opinion, I'm actually relatively pro-Israel. The issue is that U.S. involvement and expansion and escalation of war is leading us down the path to World War III. And this latest story has me a bit worried. U.S. deploys THAAD system strike group amid recent escalations by Iran. Iran? That's right. THAAD. What are we looking at here? We're looking at the terminal high altitude area defense system. These are anti-ballistic missile defense systems being deployed into the region. I'm seeing several news outlets report that Hamas and Hezbollah do not have ballistic missiles, but Iran does. We now have a massive surge of U.S. troops into the region and a fear that World War III is about to occur because the U.S. is hell-bent on invading Iran. Now, it's funny. It's funny because I sit here in this room as a man who whinges on the internet for money. And I don't know the deep nature of the classified secrets of war or anything like this. And so I recognize that as a weakness in my perspective and my perception. And there's not a lot I can do about that. But it is a requirement of those who seek to engage in warfare to justify this war to me. And they have not. And to you, to all of us, they have not. Right now, what we're getting is of many people on the left demands for the end to Israel, which I think is insane. You have many people on the right adamant that no one criticize Israel's military retaliation in the Gaza Strip. And now that may seem like an isolated regional incident, but it is bleeding out to a larger conflict with airstrikes in Syria, evacuations and airstrikes in Lebanon, and Iran threatening involvement, and the U.S. deploying defense systems more likely to be in preparation for war with Iran. War with Iran is not going to be some desert country, Afghanistan, Taliban nonsense. Iran is not like Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's a mistake a lot of people make when they look to these conflicts. You take a look at a map and what do you see? Most people don't know geography. Iraq and Afghanistan are to the Iraq to the west, Afghanistan to the east of Iran. We have military bases surrounding Iran, and they know it. And they know it greatly. I mean, this is in the presence of their mind quite a bit. And so now we are being told there are escalations by Iran. The United States, what was it? Was it Wesley Clark? General came out to the U.S. The U.S. has its eyes set on 7 nations. Iran's one of them. But let's talk about this risk. We have a few stories that I want to go through. We have this from the Mirror. China, Russia, and North Korea using smokescreen of Israel to prepare for World War III. Call it what you want. Call it what you want. Preparations for World War III are underway across the board, and this is what we are staring down. And you may ask yourself, what does this mean to me? Well, look, I see what happens with Hamas, paragliding in, tearing down the fences, and just brutally massacring Israeli civilians. And the left marching through the streets, rioting, defending Palestine, and all these things. And I disagree. And I know there are people at Timcast who disagree with me that I've hired, but I respect their opinions. I should say I respect their right to have these opinions. I don't necessarily respect their opinions, right? You know what I mean? Like, you're allowed to have your opinion. If I think you're wrong, I think you're wrong. My concern here is what could happen here in the United States as a result of World War III is multifaceted and obvious. The first, nuclear annihilation. That's not my biggest fear, to be completely honest. I really don't think that if war erupts in the region, that it's going to result in global annihilation. Why? As it pertains to Ukraine, there was a Polish member of parliament, I think it was a Polish member of parliament, I can't remember, who said that no one, I can't remember the name of the city, but said no one will sacrifice this city for New York, right? Meaning, no one's going to engage in warfare to a degree that New York City gets nuked. And so here's what I see as a possibility. Russia doesn't want to get nuked. China doesn't want to get nuked. The United States doesn't want to get nuked. So when we talk about mutually assured destruction, the general idea is like, okay, sure, fine. If Russia fires a nuke at the U.S., we nuke them back. Sure. But it's for this reason I don't believe a nuclear war with ICBMs results in global annihilation. What I see as being more likely is that if war in the region escalates with U.S., Russian, and Chinese involvement in the Middle East, around or in Iran, what likely would happen in the event of an ICBM nuclear strike is tit for tat between the great powers nuking the region and not each other. Why? Because I'll tell you this right now, mutually assured destruction, I don't believe is correct. I don't believe that if a nuke was headed towards, well, I should put it this way. Typically, people believe, and this is where the confusion comes in, that mutually assured destruction is that if the U.S. uses a nuke, every other nation will fire their nukes and everyone's blowing each other up. But the use of a nuke is going to be isolated. The U.S. is not going to arbitrarily nuke Moscow. It's not going to happen. And so Moscow has no reason to nuke D.C. There's not going to be a circumstance where any one of these nations says, okay, that's it, target a great power's capital. What will happen? Someone, and we might not even know who did it. We might not be able to detect who did it. Everyone will blame each other. But let's say the U.S. says, enough, and they try to nuke Iran. You think Russia is going to nuke the United States because the U.S. nuked Iran? No way. Because Russia doesn't want to get nuked. Russia may nuke U.S. assets in the region, and that's it. And then the U.S. is not going to nuke Russia because the U.S. doesn't want to get nuked. You see how it works? You know, look, it's a dirty, dirty game, and I don't mean game in a positive sense. I mean it's a tactic, it's a strategy, and it's the U.S. says, look, if we do nuke and we hit Russian assets, they're not going to nuke us back. And Russia says, and we know the U.S. won't either because we're pointing the big guns at each other. That's what Second World is all about. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. There's a reason why we didn't go head to head. Nuclear weapons. But we did engage in proxy wars basically everywhere. That is likely to remain, what happens. But enough about that. Let's talk about the deployment of this THAAD system and enough ranting. And I'll tell you where we're currently at. Newsweek reports the U.S. has deployed a terminal high altitude area defense anti-ballistic missile battery and additional Patriot missile battalions to undisclosed locations in the eastern Mediterranean in response to recent escalations on the part of Iran and its proxies over the war between Israel and Hamas. In a statement released on Saturday, the defense secretary said he had also ordered the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group to join the USS Gerald R. Ford Group in the Central Command area, as well as asking further forces to be prepared to deploy to the region as part of prudent contingency planning. He added that the steps he had taken would bolster regional deterrence efforts, increase force protection for U.S. forces in the region, and assist in the defense of Israel. It's tough, man. It's very, very tough. The whole Israel-Palestine thing is this big debate, and I just got to say, my concern is this is a regional conflict which could draw us into World War III. And we're all hell-bent on charging into it full steam ahead. I love that phrase, by the way. Full steam. Full steam. A bygone era of the steam engine. Shovel in the coal to boil the water. And that's the reference we use for drastically rushing towards something. This is a story from the Washington Post we covered last week. The Pentagon is surging thousands of troops. And I've had people say, Tim, where are you seeing 19,000? Well, I got the number for you right here. The move includes the deployment of 2 U.S. aircraft carriers and their associated escort ships, hauling some 15,000 personnel combined. The repositioning of an amphibious task force made up of about 4,000 Marines and sailors, and an undisclosed increase to fighter squadrons already arrayed throughout the Middle East. Another 2,000 support troops have been put on alert, and they should be ready to go within days. Okay? So this is what they're saying, 19,000 personnel. Okay, I say troops because I consider a dude on an aircraft carrier operating the machine a troop. But a lot of people think troops means combat infantry. Okay, well, we'll be careful. 19,000 personnel, U.S. military personnel operating in the region already. Deployment of 2 U.S. aircraft carriers and their escort ships. This is 2 strike groups, 2 of them, and we have 11. That's a lot. 4,000 Marines and sailors in their amphibious task force, and 2,000 potentially ready to deploy. And my understanding is those 2,000, it's been reported, are being told they may enter the region. Now, this is tough, man. The Telegraph published this by Robert Clark today. The U.S. stands on the brink of global war. Washington must stand firm if it is to avoid direct conflict with Iran and China. I see this, okay? And there are very, very difficult questions. Right now, the conflict between Israel and Hamas is escalating. There are heated debates and anger. There's just anger across the board on Twitter. I don't have all the answers for you. I don't have the key to the door of abject morality, of absolute morality. I don't know. I can tell you this. My opinion is fairly clear. Hamas stormed into Israel and just massacred civilians. And many on the left, Hamas and these leftists lied about what happened. And I'm just done. The hospital thing was such a slap in the face. We were all so busy debating who bombed the hospital. No one even stopped to ask if the hospital was even bombed, and it was not. So it turns out it was likely a Hamas rocket misfire that blew up a parking lot. And it did kill people. We don't know how many. So some of the left are still reporting 100 to 300. And I'm like, in a parking lot? Maybe. I'm sorry. They're just all liars. But I don't want war. And so I see this, people who are just so upset about it. And I'm like, look, man, the only thing I'm really concerned about, one, stopping the death of civilians. And so if someone is critical of Israel, my response is only so long as you are saying stop killing civilians. OK, I don't know what else to tell you. It's war. Israel is going to retaliate against Hamas, and it's going to have massive collateral damage. And people are going to come out and try and figure out who's on the right or wrong side. And I do not have the key to absolute morality. But I can tell you this. If Hamas did not storm into Israel and massacre a bunch of people, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be facing the brink of absolute war. So I don't have the answers for you. I don't. But I'm not going to sit here and say Israel's at fault for having been attacked because in 1947 they won a civil war or anything like this, or 1967. Dude, it's war. That's all I can say. You people are going to choose their sides on this one, and this one's tough. But my only concern is, what do we do to stop World War III from happening? And I'm not so sure we can. I'm certainly sure I can't. And so the only thing I can tell you is this. We are staring down the barrel of global conflict to a degree which has never been seen by humanity. And when it happens, if it happens, you will cry. You will cry and you will pray and you will beg for it to stop. Because we have grown up, us millennials, the older generation gets it. I'm always fascinated when I'm watching these old movies like, these 80s films and these 70s films and stuff, listen to this music. I was listening to, a song I really love is Rasputin by Boney M. What a great song. It's just so good. And I'm watching this video on YouTube of Live at this German show in 1979. Nobody's grooving to this song. They're playing the song, rah, rah, Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. And everyone in the crowd is just staring at this band. And I'm like, it's so crazy. At the time of the song, people weren't just like so enthralled by it, because now many of us, we know that song. It's like such a classic disco song, right? I love that song. And I'm like watching this audience not really care. But the reason I bring this up is I'm thinking about like that all happened during the Cold War, with the threat of nuclear annihilation in the minds of everyone. But humanity, we carried on. We carried on. Biological weapons, nuclear weapons, hypersonic missiles, satellite weapons, directed energy weapons, active denial systems. People do not understand the horrors that will be unleashed if this conflict escalates into global war. They don't get it. You know, it's all movies. It's all movies. Veterans get it. People who fight get it. You know, one thing is true, and anybody who knows anybody who is a UFC fighter, MMA guy, black belt, martial artist, like legit, anybody who's been in war or knows people who have been in war, there's one thing you know about those who are masters of violence is they desperately, desperately want to avoid it. I remember watching this video, this ripped guy, you know, he was a professional boxer. And I think it was in Europe, viral video from like 10 years ago. And these three guys are like going like this at him and going like this, and he's backing away with his hands up. And then one guy lunged at him and swings, and he puts his fist up, jumps back, and then boom, one hit. Guy goes down. Backs up, gets his fist ready, and he's trying to escape, trying not to fight. And one hit, knocks these guys down. People who know how to fight don't want to fight because they know the repercussions, the ramifications of what that fight means. But people who don't fight don't get it. They don't get it. Now, I'll tell you this. I'm not a combat guy. I've not fought. I'm not a fighter. But I've seen things. I can only imagine certain things. But I've seen things. I've seen people die. I have seen urban conflict and crisis I've been shot at. I've not fought. I've not witnessed a friend die. And the feeling you get. I can only tell you how close I've ever been to it. And it's a feeling I had never felt before. And it's something I think most people don't understand, but I know veterans do. I know they do. And they know it way, 100-fold, 1,000-fold more than I do. Because I can tell you this. I was in Egypt during the Second Revolution. I watched a guy die. I don't know what happened. I think he got shot. They had these makeshift shotguns. Something happened. But he just flopped down. That's it. Nothing left in his body being carried off the streets. And we all stood from our safety in our 20th story balcony as a guy was carried off from a highway after this fight happened. And I will say it's presumable death. I mean, this is what I was told. I mean, you watch a guy get struck in this fighting and then body go just done. People don't understand knocking out isn't a real thing. You get knocked out, you're down for a few seconds and then you come back to. This guy was just, yeah. And the only other thing I can say that's comparable to it is I saw a car accident once. I saw a car accident where a guy was thrown from his vehicle and immediately man, I have to say this. I really do. And I apologize to people. Trigger warning. I sincerely mean it. But I hope people understand the severity of what we are staring at. Seeing conflict in these cities, there's a fear. There is. But it's a feeling I had felt before. Seeing someone get injured, I've seen people get injured. And I can't describe actual combat death and bodies. But I do know, and first responders know this stuff too, especially cops who have dealt with serious violence. I've heard some of stories from cops too. The feeling you get when you see a dead person, a dead body. And you see in TV shows, when someone sees the body, they throw up immediately. I don't think people understand, because I can tell you this, I don't. And I've only grazed this. And the things that I have seen in conflict and crisis give me a feeling that I understood. I saw a car accident once where a man was thrown from his vehicle and his legs were immediately crushed into ground, into loose, shattered meat. I'm not trying to be vulgar or crass. And that was something I had never seen before. The man was lying on the ground, trying to move his legs. And it's indescribable. The feeling that I got in that moment was something I had never felt before. I don't have a word for. And I wonder if it's just me, but I really do think that the people who fought, the people who fight, even first responders, they understand what I'm saying. Maybe some don't, I don't know. Because I can only imagine what they've been through day after day after day. But seeing that, and this is not conflict or crisis. This is a car accident. But the degree of this and the severity of the injury was so shocking to me. The hands, the legs, man, I'm not even a first responder. I have been in places where bullets are flying. I've been in places where people have been shot and survived. And I've witnessed from a distance just one time, a person reportedly dying. I say reportedly because I'm trying to be as honest as I can. You know, it's not like I followed the guy to the hospital and checked his vitals, but this is what was reported to me after witnessing it happen. And seeing this car crash was just like, so this is why I'm anti-war. It is. And it's why I think it is in the best interest of everyone in this world to say whatever we have to say to stop this conflict. Right now, there are a lot of people on the left who are advocating for ceasefire. And there's a lot of criticism from people on the right over it. Man, I get it. I really, really do. Jeremy Boring, I think, had a masterful response when it came to Jeremy Boring, co-CEO of the Daily Wire, when it came to what was going on with Israel, when he said, we don't want a proportionate response because that would be Israelis just storming into Israel and massacring civilians. Jeremy's correct. But right now, understand this. I think I have it. It might be in the Telegraph story, actually. The first paragraph. The war between Israel and Hamas is set to intensify, with the ground invasion of Gaza believed to be imminent. Israeli forces are gathering in strength along the border, and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has told the waiting troops that they will soon see Gaza from inside. The command will come. The command, when it comes, could be the first blow in a much wider conflict in the Mediterranean Sea. That's right. On Israel's northern border, meanwhile, exchanges of fire with Iranian-funded terror group Hezbollah are growing in intensity. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that direct conflict would bring unimaginable devastation to Lebanon and Hezbollah. I see these videos. I'm not going to call anybody up, but I saw a video of someone reportedly getting injured. And their reaction was strange to me. The reaction of journalists reportedly got injured. And many journalists. And I'm not going to describe it beyond that because I don't want to besmirch the honor of anyone who was actually injured. But based on my experiences, as limited as they are, the reaction in this video of what people were doing and saying sounded so fake. Sorry. That's just how I feel. Because of the things that I've seen in urban conflict and crisis, not war. I've seen people get shot and they don't react this way. I've seen people get injured. They don't react this way. And then there's a lot of propaganda, false flags, and war. Fox News. McCarthy concerned of terror sleeper cells in U.S. amid Israel-Hamas war. Says speaker must prioritize the border. I think I want to expand upon this for my 1 p.m. segment to understand what it means for all of you should this war escalate, what it means for you at home, and what it might feel like. So I'll just say this without turning this one into half an hour, 40-minute videos I sometimes tend to. We are on the brink of global war, World War III. With the deployment of these THAAD systems, it's an indicator that the U.S. is preparing for war with Iran, not Hamas. U.S. hostages have been taken. No one's going to back down. We can see young people. There was a poll that was put out. 18 to 27, I think, was the demographic. I'm not sure. Or no, maybe it was like 18 to 24. But Gen Z, overwhelmingly pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine. And I say pro-Hamas, I'm not being cute. A lot of people say, we're not pro-Hamas, we're pro-Palestine. A lot of people say, we're not, it's not anti-Semitism, it's anti-Israel, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying any of that. I'm quite literally saying pro-Hamas. When Hamas stormed into Israel and massacred civilians, these people are calling those people resistance fighters. You see, it is pro-Hamas. And not everybody who's critical of Israel is pro-Hamas or anti-Semitic. But I can just tell you this. There is no solution to this because people are so fervent. It's insane. I fear what this means for the world. I really do. But I suppose I'll leave it there because that's the point at which I can talk about the foreign policy elements and what we are witnessing right now. The deployment of troops, the deployment of a rocket system. I hope you are taking your precautions, picking up your emergency food. We've shouted out safeandreadymeals.com in the past. I don't care what anyone says about insulting someone for being a prepper. If there ever was a time to be a prepper, it's now. It's now, man. And we hope that we're wrong. That in the event you end up, I don't know, buying beans and putting it in your basement or something. If there's two worst case scenarios. The absolute worst case scenario, if you buy emergency food, you're huddled in your basement crying with your family as you're eating it in desperation because the economy stopped and the food production's been diverted and there's chaos in the streets. The second worst case scenario is if nothing happens and you're wrong. I'd say this is the best case scenario. The best possible outcome is that nothing happens. And one day you say, we got a bunch of this freeze-dried food or whatever, still good. Should we eat it? Okay. And you do. That's it. 24 years after buying it, you say, well, we probably should eat it. It's got a year left and we'll order new ones. That's your best case scenario. Your worst case scenario is you have to eat it. I don't have the answers for you, my friends. I'm not psychic. I'm not the bastion of morality. I'm just some dude. And I'm looking at this news with great fear over what this turns into. And I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.